Thank you so much for joining me. How are you?
Yeah, I'm well, thank you. Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. How about yourself?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm especially excited to be talking to you today because it's not very often that I get to say that I'm talking to an inventor, you know? So
Yeah, yeah,
I'm good. I'm good.
yeah. No, definitely. I think it's going to be a great conversation.
No, for sure. Okay, we're going to jump straight in because there's so much to dig into your story, and I'm really excited to hear how you got to where you got and what you're doing right now. So, before your pivot, and you'd meet someone new, and they'd ask you, Neo, what do you do? What would you say to them?
I think before my pivot, to be honest, I'd probably answer that question the same way I answer that question now. I'm an engineer, so I've always been an engineer at heart, but a big part of that's been like a fascination with wanting to understand how things work and then designing them and then trying to improve them. So I've always had that within me. So like even as far back as I remember when I was a young child or, even like a slightly older child, I'll be like pulling things out of skips or picking bits of stuff up off the floor. My mum used to go mad at me, but it was like I always just had a fascination with like random objects. So like when I started my apprenticeship when I was 19, I sort of grew into that, and really I think a lot of that curiosity is what sort of helped shape my perspectives when it comes to finding opportunities, and even now like when it comes to new ways to market and develop products as well.
Yeah. No, that's brilliant. And then obviously you said you would say a similar thing now, but now it's probably a bit more expanded in scope. So how would you answer that question now? Neo, what do you do?
So I would say I'm an inventor, I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm a visionary. I like to think that I see things that not everyone sees, and I try and turn those things into something tangible. So primarily, I think about those three things. But I think an inventor is really the core of what I am. I think I love solving
Yeah.
problems through products and bringing them to market. So yeah, I'd say
Yeah.
I'm an inventor.
It's really cool to me. And I was really glad you said yes to coming onto the platform to talk to us because I think, like most people listening, right, I come across problems all the time, things that I'm annoyed by. And I might say to myself, oh my God, I wish I could just invent X. I'm always saying something like, oh, I wish I could just invent a time machine. But
Yeah,
like, there's a very big chasm between I wish I could invent this and then actually going and doing it. And you've gone and done that and you've invented Spurlok. So talk to me
yeah.
about that. What is it? What was the problem? How did you actually go towards creating it?
So essentially, I was an electrical maintenance engineer working in a steel factory. And one day, one of the operators of one of the machines, went to fill up his cup from a water cooler, and he got an electric shock. And there's a big procedure behind when someone gets an electric shock in more or less anywhere, but particularly in engineering environments. And so he had to go to hospital as a precaution. And I was told by my manager, or asked by my manager, to go and make this bit of equipment safe, the water cooler. And essentially, the way in which we do that is we have to isolate from the supply, which basically means disconnecting and securing that disconnection of electricity from the appliance or to the appliance. And there are various tools that you use to do this with different types of electrical fittings.
Yeah.
Just so happened that with a fuse spare unit, which this particular appliance was fed from, there didn't appear to be a tool that existed. So when I went to my manager and I sort of asked him, what can I use to isolate this? He gave me a bit of string and some paper, and he said, just write on
Dream.
there, do not use.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that sort of got my mind ticking because I know the regulations quite well and everything's quite, there's a lot of processes and procedures behind the work that we do. And I was like,
Yeah.
there's a gap here. There's an opportunity here. There's something that not only is desirable but it's also required.
It's really fascinating though. Like I said, like it's like for most people, there's a chasm, between spotting the problem, saying there's an opportunity here, and then actually deciding I'm going to be the guy. I'm going to be the person that invents the solution. So I think it's
Yeah.
phenomenal that you've actually gone and done that. Okay, that's brilliant. What were the circumstances that then had to line up for you to actually start making progress of inventing something?
I'd probably say the circumstances for me was, I think a lot of it starts with me. I think it's almost like one of the things I almost think now is that like art is almost like more about the artist than it is about the art. I think the same is true of products and services or anything creative. And with me, I've always I not only thrived off a challenge, but I need a challenge to get me, to get my juices flowing, to get me, up for it, up for it. I need something that is, way beyond my realm of
Like you're
possibilities for
saying,
me.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
exactly. For me to feel like alive, essentially. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try this, and I'm gonna, whenever I try something, I have to sort of see it through. So I didn't really know what was involved at the time, but I couldn't let it go, and it was just one of those things where I was working in the industry, interested in engineering, wanted to be an inventor. I was in a place where work was rewarding, but I also felt like I had a lot more to contribute,
Yeah.
just to society in general. And I thought this was a great opportunity for me to try and do just that, essentially.
Yeah. I think that's such a relatable statement. A couple of things you said there I can immediately relate to. That, a lot of people in this community listening to this are going to be in a similar position where it's not that you're unhappy in your role, it's not that you're, not doing well where you are, but sometimes you do just feel that whisper that says, could you be doing more? And
Yeah,
most people, like, it's really easy to ignore that little voice in the back of your mind until you get to the point where you can't ignore it and you have to try something and do something. So I think it's really cool that that's what you've done, and kind of this is the path that it's unlocked for you.
yeah, definitely, definitely. And it's addictive as well. I think like once you
Yeah.
sort of try new things, it sort of lowers the barrier of entry for you to start asking more questions of yourself and pushing yourself a bit further as well.
Yeah. No, 100%. So after you make that decision and you've found the thing that you want to solve, like you said, once you say you're going to do something, you want to see it
Yeah,
through. You want to make sure you actually do it. What's the
yeah.
first thing you do? Because being an inventor to a lot of people listening is going to be this like really intangible thing. So what was step one for you?
So step one for me was to essentially make a drawing. It's conceptualizing essentially. So it's making crude drawings, very simple, basic drawings on some graph paper. Nothing, with massive amounts of complex engineering dimensions. Just literally scribbles on a paper, and then it's just like thinking of different concepts and different ways in which it could work, a lot of which you're going to basically scrunch up and throw away because you find out they're not feasible. But that's part of the process, and eventually you'll get down to something that you think, actually, hang on, this could actually work. And essentially, once I got to that point, the next stage for me was to essentially make a prototype. And the first prototype I made was just a simple prototype. A bit of refinement went on with that, and then after that was developed, the next stage for me was to create a proof of concept prototype. And the proof of concept prototype is all about trying to validate my assumptions and test whether the concept that I've designed on paper works in the real world. And fine tuning that does take a bit of time, but essentially once you've got to that point, you're ready to sort of take it to the next level.
So actually starting with a drawing, I thought that was going to be the first step, but I didn't want to assume,
Yeah.
because I mean it's a similar thing if you're like building a business or you're bringing any sort of idea to life. Usually it's just a case of like do something, do the first thing just to make it feel a bit more tangible.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think my background in engineering helped. Before I started my apprenticeship, I went to engineering college in the Black Country for a few years, and I was taught a lot about design for manufacturer, and computer aided design. So I had these things that might not necessarily have been that useful to me, I thought at the time, that played a massive part later on. So with Spurlok, for example, I realized it was very important to make the product out of as few components possible, because it reduces the complexity and it reduces the cost, which is a massive thing. If you design a real complex product with lots of intricate moving parts, it's going to cost a
Yeah,
lot of money to produce. It's going to cost a lot of money to assemble.
yeah.
Whereas by keeping it down to essentially two individual components, I was able to create a product from the very, very concept stage that was going to be, feasible for manufacture, essentially.
You said something just then that I just want to pick up on. You said you learnt skills that at the time you didn't realize were going to be useful for you.
Yeah.
Talk to me a bit more about that and what that full circle moment was when you realized that actually you were going to be able to use those skills, and how did you utilize them? Because I think, particularly if you're pivoting, particularly for people in this community, one of the biggest things that you're always going to hear is nothing you've done is a waste. And those transferable skills, regardless of what you end up doing, those are things you get to take with you. So I'd love to hear a bit more about what that was in your journey.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's definitely a recurring theme. I think I've heard Steve Jobs say this before. Can't connect the dots going forward. You can only connect them going backwards.
Yeah.
And that made perfect sense. So, everything that I've done, I wouldn't say everything, but every job I've had, every position I've held, every interaction I've had, has all had a part to play down the line with Spurlok or with something else. And I'll give you, there's a few examples. I mean, one example is talked about engineering college and my understanding of design for manufacture and also computer-aided design. There's also things like I did, once I left school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. So because I had no idea what I wanted to do, because I wasn't necessarily, school didn't really suit me in terms of like the format.
Fair. Yeah.
So I didn't get great career advice. I was told I couldn't do a lot of things more than I was told about what I could do, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. It does. Yeah.
And one of the things that I did is I took 3 random A levels. I took English, and then I took psychology, and then I took graphic design. I don't know what I was trying to be, but yeah, I took those 3 A levels.
An inventor,
And
apparently.
exactly. And I really enjoyed graphic design. I failed at the time. I mean, I think I got like a D or something. I didn't do great in graphic design,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
years
Yeah.
down the line, I was learning how to use like Photoshop, Illustrator, Adobe After Effects. And when I started Spurlock, and even from the very early stages, I've done all my own graphic design. So it's like my website, I've done all the graphic design for. I've done my own Shopify store, but I did all the graphic design work for
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
logo, the design of my packaging, like all of the raw crucial things that would have taken me so much time and so much money if I paid someone else to do it. I've
Oh,
been able
yeah.
to sort of
Yeah.
do those in house just through learning those basic skills, like probably like 6 or 7 years previous. So you never know. You just never know what role these things have to play.
Yeah. It's sometimes I find in my journey as well, quite similarly, because I did a lot of creative things that even though I'm in a less creative sector now, in some ways, I use all of them. I use all of those skills. And sometimes even when you're not using the skill, it helps just to understand the language of it and
Yeah.
be able to communicate with people that are designing or are building things. So I think that's a really great example of how you've gotten to utilize those skills and actually save time, money, speed up your own process and progress in that way.
Yeah, definitely. And I think also when you're a solo entrepreneur or just in the very early stages, I think like that saying necessity is the mother of invention rings very true.
Yeah.
And I feel like you have to find ways to become more resourceful and industrious and find more cost-effective ways of doing things. But I don't think that's a bad thing. I actually think that's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. Okay. So we're going to move on to the a more practical elephant in the room, let's call it,
Yeah.
which is like when you're pivoting, right?
Yeah.
Well, I suppose in your case, when you're increasing the scope of what you're actually doing, there's that concept of like, how do I keep the lights on? And
Yeah,
something
yeah.
you shared with me before is like, the misconception that everyone has, which is when you're a founder, when you have an idea, you have the idea on Monday, you leave your job on Tuesday, start up on Wednesday, millionaire by Thursday. And that's just not the reality of it. So talk me through, like, practically speaking, how have you funded the pivot, and how are you keeping the lights on?
Yeah, so I've always funded my work with Spurlock through my full-time employment as an engineer. Even though Spurlock is my aspirations, and I'm an inventor, and my business is growing, and I've got these big aspirations for myself and for my business.
Yeah,
I need to use the time at work as effectively as possible to increase my skill set, increase my value to the marketplace while I'm at work. So therefore, I've got more resource to be able to afford to do the things and push the business in the way that I want to go, and
yeah,
also becoming more skillful at the same time. I
yeah,
think that is important as well, because it's easy to lose concentration, especially when you've got things going on outside of work and like you're really passionate about them and enthusiastic. But I
yeah,
think in the
yeah,
early stages, these things aren't necessarily going to happen like overnight, like we alluded to. So it's important to keep concentration, And again, just going back to being resourceful, using being cost effective with the way you do things, finding ways to be industrious and resourceful. And yeah, it does take longer, but I think that you have to learn to enjoy the process.
Yeah. It's like figuring out the discipline kind of becomes the new thing that you get excited about, because it does
Yeah.
take a lot of time. It does take a lot of effort, resources, like you've mentioned. How do you, in that process of it all, how do you manage to stay motivated and manage to avoid burnout? Because that's a very real thing, right? Like particularly
Yeah.
when you're building something and it is a long term thing that you're doing. It's not like an overnight thing.
To be honest with you, yeah, it's a real good question. It's hard because the balance is so fine. The line between working really hard and making really good progress, and then pushing yourself beyond your limits is difficult. And I've experienced it before because it's very insidious as well. It's not something that just happens, or you go flat out for a week and then all of a sudden you're burnt out. It's like consistently working, hours every single night after work, and then working on the weekends as well. And then it's like that, over the course of a year or two, like, no matter who you are, I just think it will catch up with you. I mean, I've been there. Um, Many entrepreneurs have been there, and I'm sure are still there now. What I've learned though is, and I've learned this through, it's weird, a bit weird. So like, I had a situation like the last 18 months where, because I bought a house and it was basically, it was derelict. It was almost derelict. So I stripped it down, and then I've drastically underestimated how much time it would take me to get it to where it needed to be. So I had to sort of put the business on hold for a bit, and it was difficult. But what I learned that by having that break and having a new challenge, it really recharged my mental batteries to be able to go and attack the business. And my frame of mind now is I'm all ready to go and I'm all ready to execute, because I've just had a lot of pent up energy, which
Yeah.
has been stored. So I think having a break is crucial, and it's better that you have the break on your own terms than let the break find you, if that makes sense.
100%, that makes sense. 100%. I saw a quote the other day. I say a quote, it was on social media, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But it said, like, yes, you have to work really hard, but you have to rest with the same amount of intensity. And I think people, particularly pivoting and people that are founders or entrepreneurs, it's really easy to forget that, because it kind of feels like if you're not going 100 miles per hour, full steam ahead, you're failing somehow, and
Yeah.
that's just not the reality of it. Because as you said, sometimes it is that separation and disconnection that's going to give you new perspective and new energy to come back and go even harder than you would have been able to go previously. So yeah, I 100% resonate with that.
I also think that it makes you think a bit more, and be a bit more mindful about your purpose, like
Yeah.
why are you doing this for? What do
Hmm.
you want it for? Because it's so easy when you're invested and you're just fully just absorbed in what you're doing. It's so easy to lose track of why you started that in the first place and
Yeah.
what you want from it at the end. And I feel like taking a little bit of a step back from it allows you to remember, okay, yeah, it's because of this, because of this, because of this. It's not, necessarily because of the things that you do day to day, the little things that become menial sometimes. But it's you have got a greater purpose. I think that's helpful.
The We've talked about the finance and keeping the lights on. When you were coming into this, were there any other constraints for you?
Yeah, definitely. So I think when working full time, time comes at a premium. I think time comes at a premium anyway, but particularly when you're sort of compressing your hours down to fit into a schedule where you've got a full-time job and other commitments. I think that it's very important that you have a schedule or a specific list of tasks.
Yeah.
For me, I needed to have clear objectives that I could achieve by persistently chipping away at them throughout the week. And over the course of through a few years, essentially those objectives and accomplishments, they compounded into massive accomplishments.
Yeah.
And those accomplishments in turn motivated me to sort of press on and continue. So,
Next thing. Yeah.
um, yeah.
Yeah. I absolutely love that. How do you think about compounding effort and compounding progress? How do you look at that, particularly as someone who is building something that doesn't exist, right now,
Yeah,
essentially.
yeah.
Because the metric is different, right? You kind of have to measure it with a different set of metrics to understand what progress looks like. So how do you think about that? What does that look like for you?
So for me, I think reflection is important. I feel you have to have a reference point. You've got to have a point to look back on and say, you know what, this was where I was X amount of years ago. But for me, a massive thing, and this sums up my whole process, is that um, there's a quote by one of a guy who's I listen to, and he just taught me so much in the way of philosophy, called Jim Rohn, and one thing he said to me that had a profound impact was, what you become is more important than what you get.
Yeah.
And like with that knowledge, you look within yourself, you say, right, okay, I made this mistake, I learned that, this didn't work out,
Yeah.
but you know what, at the end of it, I'm now this person that's capable. And like when you have that mentality, you can't lose really, because even if you don't succeed, like you've become a more capable person through the process. So for me, I look at myself and I say, you know what, I can design a product, I can bring a product to market, I can, make a website, I can get a product patent, understand intellectual property, all
Yeah.
those different avenues. Like for now, no matter what happens with Spurlok and my business, I know I'm a capable person, and I'm only in a better position for those things.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I'm so glad you've brought up Jim Rohn. Would you believe I was listening to him earlier today?
You know what? It doesn't surprise me, because knowing the sort of person you are, like, I feel like it's very, it just makes sense. Yeah, it's very, very uncanny, but at the same time, like, yeah, I'm not too surprised, but yeah, no,
No, I
he's
am.
wonderful.
I am absolutely obsessed with him, and I know him religiously. My fiance actually introduced me to him.
Really?
Yeah, we always listen to him because he says so many things that are so salient, and he said them a
Oh
long
yeah,
time ago, and they very much
yeah,
still ring true today. So
yeah,
if you're listening, do go and check out Jim Rohn, and yeah, let me know what you think.
yeah,
Also,
yeah, definitely. I'll definitely second that as well.
yeah, no, he's brilliant. So
Yeah.
the other question that I wanted to pick your brain on was how do you balance how do you balance urgency versus getting results fast? And I ask that because again, to bring it back to that pivot journey and people that are pivoting, you you want to make progress as quickly as possible because a lot of the thinking around starting something new or doing something that you haven't done before is, oh my god, what are people going to say? Like, I've started again from scratch. I need to be seen to be achieving something ASAP, or people are going to judge me, or people are going to think that I've failed at something. So for you as an inventor, you kind of have to have a longer term view of things. But how do you balance how much energy to put into the things that need to be done urgently versus the things that you want to strategically and more systematically approach and make progress on?
I think what you do, and the things that you do, you have to do them for you.
Yeah.
You have to have a belief that no one else is going to see what you see,
Yeah.
and if they did, they'd be doing it, and if they were doing it, it wouldn't be significant, and if it wasn't significant, why would you want to do it? You know what I mean?
100%.
So for me, I just feel like once you've got that understanding within yourself about what you're trying to do, respect the opinions of others, and you have to learn to use those opinions to form your own opinion,
Yeah.
to come to the product of your own conclusion, essentially. But throughout that process, I think when you're talking about quick wins essentially and yielding fast results, it's a temptation. I mean, I'll give you an example for me. Like when I first made my product and I first launched it, that was more like a soft launch. But when I launched my product, I had significant people in the industry and market leaders in the field of electrical isolation products and
Mm.
in the electrical industry reaching out to me wanting to use almost partner, but essentially use my products as part of their packages. But um, my vision of Spurlock is completely different. Like
Right.
I'm trying to revolutionize the way people view safety devices. I'm trying to rebrand them. I'm trying to make them enticing, appealing, not just ergonomically viable, but also desirable. And that the packaging speaks to that, the website speaks to that, how we present the product speaks to that, and how it works speaks to that. And I can only really trust myself to do that. And I've had to say no to a lot of different opportunities along the way, even in situations where I could have really done with probably, an injection of some cash or, some other resources for the business. But it's my vision, essentially. It's my long-term vision of what Spurlok is, and having faith in that and trusting the process is really what makes me not worry too much about the short term, and just be able to think a bit more about the longevity of the business and the products that I'm trying to create.
Yeah, I love that, because I love particularly that you kind of brought it back to what your own vision is, and making sure that when you are doing things, like it aligns with what you see and how you see it going, because it can become really easy to get sidetracked and distracted and lose focus on what that vision is. And lots of people do go through that. So yeah, I completely agree with you. So during this pivot journey for you, coming into inventing something, obviously you've mentioned like that wasn't the plan. This is something that you fell into a little bit. What assumptions did you have about stepping into this, and how have you had to let go of those things, and what doors have opened up once you have?
I think the assumptions I had probably mainly about myself. One of the assumptions is probably that my skills were limited to my past experiences, and that might mean that I would have to always rely on others to do certain tasks, which is true to an extent, but I've learned that within all of the various areas of my business, there's an abundance of tasks that I'm capable of fulfilling myself.
Yeah.
And often with just like a little bit of commitment to learning to learning tasks within different areas, sort of the pool of tasks that you're able to do yourself grows significantly. And that's, I think that's important, not because I want to do everything in my business myself, but because as the business grows, I want to have an understanding of every single different area in the business, so I can make sure that I'm making the right decisions collectively for my staff members, making sure that they're in line with what I'm trying to achieve, and also be able to have an interest in those areas. I've seen it so often where people delegate tasks to people who they might be capable, but they're on different wavelengths. And when you get that sort of detachment, I feel like it can be, I don't think it's a good thing. So, yeah, but I'd just say paying an interest to the different things that I was able to do, essentially. So, yeah, I'd say that's probably one of the big misconceptions I had about myself, or one thing that I've learned.
It's important as well. I think we've touched on this a little bit, but even if you're not the person that's doing the thing in terms of like the day-to-day of what needs to be done, it's so important to still be able to communicate, and to still be able to like speak the language and understand what's happening, so that even if you're hiring, or even if you're talking to someone else about what it is you want, you're still able to speak the language that means that you guys can meet in the middle, as opposed to just you being told and your vision being changed just because you're not able to communicate on the same level, essentially. So yeah, I think that's a really good observation that you've had to kind of make in yourself. So
Yeah.
are there any tactics or habits that once you started gave you a bit of an advantage, or some early wins that showed you that, okay, this is viable, this is the path that I want to stay on?
So I think the first, for me, a big thing was, and it's not just for me, this is true for everyone, to be honest with you, and it's not just exclusive to entrepreneurship, this is just in life, like seek help. Find others that have the experience in the sectors that you're trying to enter, and reach out to them for advice, because you often find that people are a lot more willing to help than you might necessarily feel. Like, I thought we put people on a pedestal and we think, oh, this person's at the top of their profession, why would they, want to reach down and help me?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But as we know, that's not the case. You often find those sorts of people are the ones that are most willing to help, because they've got a lot to offer, and you get a lot of personal satisfaction from helping others. I do to this day. I mean, like, even with what we're doing today, I mean, I'm gonna really enjoy the fact that other people are going to be able to listen to our conversation and hopefully take some gems that they're able to use for themselves, and maybe even learn from some of like my mistakes, and be able to hopefully avoid those things going forward. So I think seeking help's a massive thing, and not only does seeking help is not only is it beneficial for you, but it also shows a level of humility that you need, because no one knows it all. You know what I mean? We don't, and we're all going to be awful at certain things. So there is no shame whatsoever in seeking help. In fact, I think it's a positive thing.
That's kind of how this platform came about. That's one of the biggest hopes that I have for it, is that it will be a collective space where people can just come, listen, and get help with navigating whatever that pivot journey looks like. Because we've got people like yourself who are on really unconventional paths that, if you find yourself on a similar path, they're definitely going to be able to take a lot of value from the things that you've done and the things that you haven't done and the decisions that you've made on your journey. So yeah, seeking help is a really, really big one. And that was an excellent segue to pitfalls and mistakes and challenges.
Yeah, definitely. I set myself up for that one, didn't I?
Yeah, you did. You did. I was waiting for it, and I said, "Yes, this is it." So, talk to me about on the journey so far. Have there been any like dramatic pitfalls or mistakes or challenges that you've gone through, and how have you overcome them?
I think it's funny. I think because a lot of this comes back to perspectives again, and I've had like catastrophes at every single stage of every single step in the business, every single step in the road to manufacturing. I've had massive like catastrophes, but I've never thought that anything is something that was unrecoverable, because it's like once you set your mind on something, like with a relentless outlook, you'll overcome those things and you'll find ways around, and you'll find ways to navigate them, even if it doesn't feel like that at the time. But I'd probably say, I mean, that goes down to like manufacturing, supply chain. It could even go down to sales. There's so many avenues, but I think for me, it would probably have to be one of the biggest pitfalls is probably for I maybe didn't factor in how certain personal commitments would impact my business. So when I developed my sales and marketing plans, I had a vision for how I was going to execute, and while working full time to finance a business, it sort of meant that my free time had to be used to execute. Well, that I was supposed to be using to execute my marketing plan, ended up getting absorbed into other things. I mean, I've had this house that I've been renovating, which is a massive thing for me. And then, not being able to spend that time on the business impacted the cash flow, because I had a load of stock, but not the resources to sell it. And even though there was probably in hindsight not much I could do about that, was a situation that sort of just happened. I do think that when you're developing your plans, it's important to be able to put some mitigation in for unforeseen circumstances, because they do happen, they will happen, it's inevitable with everything. And the plan will never go exactly to the plan to the letter. But
Never.
if you put a little bit, give yourself a little bit of space to breathe, then you take the pressure off yourself as well a bit, I think.
Yeah. Oh, planning is one of those things, isn't it? It's not that it actually ever things actually ever go to plan. Oh, I shouldn't say never. Rarely things go to plan. But I think the value in planning is almost doing it and thinking through those things, and as you say, thinking about if and when things go wrong, because they inevitably sometimes do, what will you do to mitigate? How do you still achieve and progress towards what it is you're trying to achieve and progress towards, and that's a really, really key aspect of it.
No, 100%. Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
You said obviously there's been lots of different setbacks at various different stages of the business. How is that refining you as a founder, as a person that's on this journey? Because not everyone just naturally has the ability to just keep getting back up and keep moving forward when things aren't going right. So for you, what do you think you pull on to help you keep getting back up and continuing to move forward?
Don't get me wrong, it was hard. For me, it was very mentally hard because I'm very driven, and I once I set my sights on something, I really want to achieve it, and when I'm not, it's like, yeah, I'll just get like you know what I mean? Like I just feel like I'm, like babies get that like separation like syndrome. I feel like that. So yeah, yeah. But again, I think what we alluded to earlier, like I essentially use my time on the sidelines as motivation. Just made me more determined to execute, and I feel like it's weird, but I never use other people's opinions as motivation, but I do often think about how other people might perceive things from the outside because I've got a different perspective. And it's like,
Yeah.
to everyone else, I've launched this product and, I'm not, they're not really selling and, like it's not really worked and, it's, it hasn't happened and this, that, and the other. But it's like, from the inside, I know I haven't done any marketing. I haven't done any advertisement. I'm not doing any, active sales. So like, it's right that I should not be selling. If I was selling, I'll be like, okay,
What's going
my business like research and my plans are completely gone out the window. I'm gonna have to rethink about how I do things. So it makes sense, but sometimes those opinions, even though they're not voiced or how you think people are perceiving things, it can sometimes affect you. But for me, I need that stuff to get me going. Like I need people to not necessarily just underestimate me a little bit, and I feel like that does wonders for me. So I feel that's where I am now, and it's like I'm just so ready just to show what I've got in store because it's a really exciting time for the business and for me personally. So yeah.
It's so interesting. Is that your perspective of what people from the outside are thinking? Because that's not my perspective when I think of what you're doing with Spurlok. My perspective is the complete opposite of what you just said.
Yeah. It's literally it is what I mean. It's not even necessarily like a real perspective or anything anyone
Yeah.
has done or said, but it's like um I feel like a lot of people give up on their endeavors. A lot of people, when they come across an obstacle, they give up and they stop. And for me, because of that, it's not uncommon for people to see when someone's making a lot of progress and making traction, and then, they get to a point where that traction slows down or stops, for people to assume that, that person has just accepted defeat. But yeah, again, I think it's more of a mechanism for myself to be able to, motivate myself as well more than anything. But those perspectives, or even any like, perspective which is, contrary to the truth
Yeah.
is useful for me personally.
That's fascinating. And like whatever works for you, right? Like what we're all going to take motivation from like different places and different things. I think the part of that reflection that you mentioned earlier is like figuring out what gives you energy, figuring out what gets you going, and intentionally tapping into that when you need to.
Yeah, I think, do you know what's funny? I think a part of that is like, when people, when you're on your journey and you're making progress and people are like, oh, like you're doing really well and like, you're gonna smash it, like I can really see big things. I feel those things are great, but there's an element of pressure that comes with that.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
100%. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, there's like an element of pressure, and I feel like when people don't have that expectation, it almost like,
It's
oh,
freeing,
okay,
isn't it?
it's freeing, it's liberating, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, 100%. I've definitely experienced that. It's almost, it can be quite debilitating a little bit.
Yeah,
Because then you feel like all of the decisions you make, you have to kind of go through this internal audience and board of directors that you make up. They're not even real people, like you said. And
yeah.
that can sometimes be the really debilitating thing that stops you from being able to move forward and keep making progress at the same pace and velocity that you've perhaps been making progress in.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's one to flag and definitely be aware of. Okay. So my next set of questions is kind of around that kind of community element, which I suppose for you and in your journey in building Spurlock, that's probably quite an important thing. So has there been a single person or community that you think has made the biggest difference in your journey so far?
There's been a few. There's definitely been a few. There's been, lots of different people. For me, probably say the people that made a significant impact on my journey would be some mentors that I had.
Yeah.
through Innovate UK actually. So Roy and Rachel, they were like a crucial part of preparing me for my journey.
Yeah.
And like Roy was a manufacturing consultant and he had years of experience in new product development. So he showed me key skills, like core skills, like how to identify and mitigate risks, assess the feasibility of my product, and then showed me important areas such as like the importance of intellectual property, supply chain management, and so on. All the things that I would have thought of in a million years when I started my business, but
Yeah.
all of the things that I needed to know at an early stage, because it's those missions that make the difference between your product being a success and your product being a failure.
Yeah.
And I get just so many. I mean, even down to like user trials. So when I had my almost final set of prototypes ready to go to manufacture, I was basically advised to do some user trials, to essentially send these out to people in the field, gas engineers, electricians,
Yeah.
let them use them, do some surveys and get feedback. And as part of that feedback, I ended up getting some information that helped me to improve the product, because there was essentially a way that you could almost trick the product into not working. And had I not gone through that process, I might have ended up with, a set of like £30,000 injection mold toolings that would produce a product that it wasn't gonna work essentially,
So
or
easy to
would
do
be
though, isn't it?
bypass.
It's so easy. Once you've been working on something and you're tunnel vision and you're convinced of its efficacy, it's full steam ahead and stopping to get opinions and user test it. That's such a key aspect.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so that was massive for me from Roy. And then Rachel, similar thing, very experienced, but she was an expert on the marketing side. So she's a marketing professional, so she knows a lot about developing marketing plans. She's worked for big companies. She's helped me look at case studies of other companies that she may have worked with in the past, and people she may have worked with in the past that have used things that have worked. And in fact, she was the one who told me about LinkedIn and the importance of social brand and building a social brand.
Right.
And yeah, luckily it was a good job that I did that, because a lot of the connections that I've made, they've been through LinkedIn, and I've managed to build up a bit of a community on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah.
So that's been big for me.
That's amazing. You're definitely someone that I think because of what you're building, kind of leveraging that community aspect and bringing people along on that journey with you is going to be really, really powerful for you. And I'm excited to see across your socials like what you do next and how things develop and keep developing from here on.
Yeah, definitely. I'll be a lot more active on them now, not just for my own personal brand, but also for the Spurlok brand on the company page as well, and all across all social media platforms as well. So yeah, definitely that's my commitment. I've said it now; it's out there in the universe. So yeah, I'll have to
Well,
I'll have to
yeah,
follow through.
I'm going to be checking in it now, so I'm gonna make sure. Um, okay, so another really key thing I wanted to touch base on actually was, and specifically for people that are pivoting, right, or building something or starting something new. I think one of the most difficult things sometimes is this perception that you can't ask anyone for anything and you have to kind of do it all on your own. Obviously, we've just mentioned the massive support that you managed to get from previous mentors that you've had. What have been other examples of small asks that have yielded massive results in your journey so far?
So I think when it comes to the small asks, I think it's more about the amount of people you ask and the amount of times you ask, because um, you've got to accept rejection. Like you have to accept that people aren't necessarily gonna say horrible things to you, but they just might not respond to your emails. They might not
Yeah.
write the letter back or return the phone call.
Yeah.
And that's fine. That's normal. That is how the world works. But
Yeah.
you can't let those things get you down. And when I had my first batch of Spurloks produced and packaged, I made a plan and was like, okay, I'm gonna send like Spurloks, or I'm gonna ask certain people if they would like Spurloks, like just for like essentially for free. But it was a case of more of an incentive in terms of like I wanted to promote the products in like training academies and all different types of things for apprentices. And I really wanted to get the product out there just to improve working practices mainly because I'm passionate about that as a electrical professional. But
Yeah.
I had a list of people I wanted to send them to, and it was like I didn't hear back. I sent quite a lot out. I didn't hear back from like anyone, more or less, nearly no one. But there was one set of people. They're a content creator, the biggest content creator in the electrical space. Actually, they've got like close to like 1 million subscribers on YouTube. They do massive things and big numbers. And I sent some Spurloks to them. I said it was all these Spurloks are wrapped in Christmas packaging paper because it was Christmas time. I sent a batch
Yeah,
of
yeah,
Spurloks
yeah.
to them,
Genius marketing.
and
Love it.
yeah, I just thought, just it's worth doing anyway. You got to plant the seed, and off the back of that, they reached out to me. They made, I wasn't expecting anything. Like I didn't send that as, oh, okay, if I do this, I'll scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. It was never a thing like that. It was a thing of just, I want to show people that this is what I've got and this is what I've done, and talk a bit about my story. And when I did that, one of the guys from the company reached back out to me, and he basically asked me a bit about my story, and they did like I think it's got to be like a 10-minute video talking all about my story, all about the products, and they posted it on the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
They did a short, and off the back of that short,
Wow.
records sales in a month sort of thing. So it was like,
Yeah.
it was something I wasn't expecting, but at the same time, it was just off the back of that simple gesture that I did. It came, something came to fruition.
That's such a brilliant example of like it's always worth asking the question. It's always,
Yeah.
always worth asking the question because sometimes the response you're going to get is, and it only has to be from one person, right? Like you don't need every single person to say yes to you. You only need one person to say yes, and that might make the biggest difference in your journey and the trajectory of how things look afterwards.
Yeah.
Because
And I just want to
sorry.
add on to that as well. For other people listening as well, the biggest part about that and the most important thing about that was not the financial results that I gained. It was the relationship that I built, because that relationship has stood strong to this day. And now I'm in a position where I've got pivot allies, as we allude to. Like these are crucial people in that you can have mutually beneficial relationships with. So sometimes it is about the long run, and building relationships is really important. So yeah, sorry to interrupt you, but yeah, I just thought it's
No,
important
no,
to
no,
talk
no.
about that.
That's, I mean, you've basically taken the words right out of my mouth. That is exactly it. You never know what's going to come from the smallest ask. So don't psych yourself out just because you're specifically thinking about pivoting. Just because you're not necessarily in an industry yet, it doesn't mean that you don't have value to add or don't have value to give. So always looking for opportunities where you can potentially add value, and don't be afraid to ask people to do something or ask people to review something or test something. And you never know what can come back. So on the same page there now.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's almost like it's telepathic.
I mean, it's like we planned this or something. I don't know.
I know Jim Rohn and everything. It's all getting a bit eerie.
Exactly. So on your journey so far, obviously we've touched on a lot of the highs of it, some of the lows of it, and the things that have been surprising to you about the industry, about what you're learning about yourself. What's been the most surprising thing that you're learning about, who you're becoming as a person on this journey?
For me, it probably have to be resilience. Resilience is a big one because
Yeah.
sometimes you don't truly know how resilient you are until you put yourself in situations where you'll find out. And I feel like I have found out, like we talked about earlier, like the amount of challenges that I've had, and every step of the way there's been massive hurdles to overcome. But it's tested my resolve, and I would never have known that about myself. Like I think entrepreneurship is you learn so much about yourself. And again, I'll say a bit back to Jim Rohn. I don't want to keep quoting him, but like he always says, like everyone should have set a goal to become a millionaire, not because of the money, but because of what you become.
Yeah.
And like I believe that you do find things out about yourself that you never would have known had you not gone on that journey. So I'd say resilience is one big one.
Yeah.
The second one, I would say adaptability. I'm just about to say that word, adaptability.
Yeah.
But it's the ability to change my opinions and actions based on new information. You have to be flexible. It's okay to have a strong opinion, but you've got to be open to other opinions, and you've got to be able to reform your opinion based on those information, because the most important thing is getting the right answer, not being right. So I think that's one thing that I've learned about myself. I probably was a bit more rigid in my thought train earlier on in the process, but as I've moved forward, I've become more malleable in that regard.
That's important. That's really important. I think another way I've heard that be phrased is this concept of a growth mindset, right? Like it's that malleability, that ability to take on new information, that ability to keep growing, and being open to that. Can't stress enough how important that is, particularly if you're entering a new space or you're doing things that you've never done before. You have to believe in the feasibility of them actually being able to happen for you. I think that's probably one of the most key aspects in whatever the journey is that you're pivoting into. So that's a really good one, actually. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So we've alluded a little bit to how exciting the next few months are going to be for you and how much energy you're about to attack this with, which I'm incredibly excited to see. But what are you most excited about for Spurlok and for yourself over the next, I don't know, 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, like you say, the next 12 months is going to be a really exciting time for me. It's going to be a really challenging time, but it's going to be something that I'm really going to thrive on, because I'm going to essentially get to start to execute my sales and my marketing plan again. These aren't things that I've done before. These aren't things that, I'm an expert in, and I've got this and this is all going to go right. But just like every other area of my business, it's something that is going to turn into an opportunity for me to hold my skill set and finally see some return on investment. But the first thing is learning again and improving, becoming a better person. It's like almost like you play like a video game and you've got like levels, and it's like level 1, design a product. Level 2, design a prototype. Level 3, take it to market. And it's like level 4, it's like the big boss now. I've got to get the sales and the sales and marketing baddie beat. But I'm excited for that, and I think I've put a lot of resource and money into Spurlok. So I think being able to see some return on investment is going to be a real good thing for me. I think not just in a financial sense, but also in a sense of being able to see that people are using the product, that are, the product is valuable, and it's something that people want as well. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, but I mean, particularly as an engineer that's still actively working in the field, you're going to be so close to the people that are actually utilizing this and actually using this and improving their working practices day to day. So being able to see the impact that it's having so close up, I think that's going to be, that's the founder's dream, really, isn't it? It's when you build something and it actually solves the problem that you intend for it to solve.
Yeah, definitely. It's social proof, isn't it? It's showing that, what you've created has a place and has value as well. We make a lot of assumptions as entrepreneurs. We make the assumption that if we make this product or if we make this service or if we do this in this way, that it's going to work. But they're just assumptions at the end of the day, and you have to test those in the marketplace. So, 100%.
Sometimes the result it doesn't always go how you want it to go, but you have to do it because it's the entire purpose of the thing, isn't it?
Definitely, exactly that.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, if there was one resource that you could recommend to people that are pivoting, what would it be? And you can say more than one. You don't feel limited. But what would be like your top pivot resources?
So I think books are important. Again, when you're talking about certain areas of business, particularly when it comes to marketing, it doesn't have to be books, but I find like if you read like at least one or maybe 2 books about say like marketing, for me it was marketing. So like reading books like that, I personally use One Page Marketing Plan. I've read a variety of other books, but again, I'm going to take it back to what we talked about. Like I religiously listen to motivational speakers, like particularly Jim Rohn. I mean, for the last 4 years or 5 years, I'd probably say like 60 to 70% of what I listen to has been Les Brown or Jim Rohn
Yeah.
or another motivational speaker, but particularly Jim Rohn, because what I like so much about Jim Rohn is its philosophies. It's a way of life, a way of living your life. And it's not all about money. It's not all about business. It's not about material things. It's philosophies that you can take with you and use in different avenues of your life. It just so happens that he was a very successful businessman who employed those philosophies. So I would say get some philosophies, get a better understanding of what it is, or it doesn't have to be a better understanding, but get an understanding of what you, the way in which you want to live your life. And I think finding people online, Jim Rohn, Les Brown, these sort of motivational speakers are perfect ways to do that.
I keep looking off camera because there's a Jim Rohn quote on my wall that I look at every, and it literally says the major key to your better future is you. So when
Yeah.
it's one of my favorite ones, and I like seeing it so that I'm just reminded of the decisions that I'm making every day and the actual impact of those decisions, and not to fall into the trap of thinking that if you're not intentional, then things will just work out. That maybe for some people, but like for most of us, there has to be an element of intention behind those decisions if we want things to go a certain way. So I couldn't agree with you more. I think listening to motivational speakers is part of fine tuning the system and proactively building out the system that is going to make sure that you're able to stay motivated and keep going. Because in any journey, in any pivot journey, there's going to be highs and there's going to be lows, and proactively preparing for that by knowing what you're going to listen to on the days that everything seems impossible and everything's going wrong, like knowing what to listen to bring you out of that and get you back on track. That's part of that system. So I think I couldn't agree with you more. And Jim Rohn obviously gets my vote as well.
Yeah.
As Brown you mentioned as well, I know he's also really really good. So those are two phenomenal recommendations.
In fact, I feel like we've talked a lot about Jim Rohn, and I could go on for hours about quotes. I
Yeah.
think we'll have to have a conversation about Jim
Oh
Rohn,
yeah. Oh yeah.
at some point, and
Yeah.
not use everyone's time out. But yeah, honestly, I could talk about because it's rare that I actually meet someone who actually listens to him. Like a lot of people go for motivational speakers who are very like, you know what I mean, like loud and you know what I mean, trying to
Yeah.
real sort of like pump you up and stuff. But like you can't listen to that for so long. But I think I'd just like to leave like one thing about Les Brown. And Les Brown, one of my favorite things that he says that I take with me to this day, and it really helps to fortify me, is other people's opinions of you do not have to become your reality. And
Yeah.
for me, that is very powerful, and I feel it's important other people know that, because there are going to be people that are listening to this now that have friends or family members or just people at work that don't see the vision, don't believe in what they're going to do, or don't think that they're capable of doing that. And it's important that you understand that those opinions don't have to become your reality. Exactly what you said. The key to your better future is you. So they tie together nicely, I think.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything I could add to that really. That's where I'm going to end it, because I think you're exactly right. Nao, you've been phenomenal. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your journey and your story with the Pivots and Paydays community. Any last words, or where can people find you? How can people tap into your journey and what you're going to do next? Because I know that this is going to be a big year for you. Where can we find you?
Yeah, definitely. So you can find me on LinkedIn. It's Neo Musadisa. There are not loads of Neo Musadisas, I can assure you. So it's Neo Musadisa on LinkedIn. You can see Spurlok on spurlok.com. You can see Spurlok on TikTok, Spurlok underscore online. You can see Spurlok on Instagram, Spurlok online again. And yeah, you can essentially, you'll see me everything, all the journey that'll be essentially broadcast on those social media platforms. And then my personal journey will be on LinkedIn as well. And yeah, essentially that's it really. But the last words I want to say is thank you to you, not for having me on, but for starting this platform, because I think it's so important. And my thing is I think the best products, the best services, the best things in life are things that people do for other people. And I think that's what is at the core of Pivots and Paydays. So I feel there's going to be so much insight that people are going to gain, and so much knowledge and so much perspective from this platform that you started. So I'm really excited for it. But also, yeah, thank you to you, and yeah, you should be proud of yourself for doing it and making it happen.
No, thank you so much for saying that. It means a lot to me to give back to their community. You know, I having gone through my own pivot, you know, one of the big things that I developed through that was a lot of empathy for the people that are going through the same thing, because it really isn't easy. So thank you so much for saying that, and let's see how it goes.
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking forward to both our journeys.